Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. There's a lot of ways to interact with us, as we already have Ida Beza Gardner with the hi and the wave, and the Mondo Moncando with the yo-yo to you as well. We won't be yo-yoing around too much today, but we do have a lot to get into, so keep the comments coming over there if you so choose to do so, though we will have those phone lines open a little bit later. And just as a side note, not to say that, we open up the phone lines, we make it available, and we do take on all comers, even if Friday is still its own distinct thing. Don't get that twisted. But you don't have to call if only you're massively ticked off. I just want to make that clear out there. We can talk about the things that are going on and affecting us in the borderland. In fact, that's one of our core missions. The other is to just have live local talk radio here in the area, as we have Fish Guy, because yes, I'm aware of that. GHOTI is one of those things that proves English is a nonsensical language. Because, yeah, goatee can be pronounced as fish if you take it from enough. And anyway, I won't get into that one. Look it up for yourselves if you're so interested. But a lot of other commentary, again, over on the Twitch stream, do appreciate that. And a lot of things going on and certainly affecting us in this area, such as some serious situations and more prosecutions actually coming in with some of those border security situations, specifically even as we're in our own heat wave. We also have Robbie Flores joining us over there. Hello to you as well. Another prosecutions in that really grisly and grim situation where their tractor trailer was abandoned with people in it. So that's one thing. More prosecutions going on there. But even in our region, the heat still very much going up, including the Guadalupe Mountains National Park being shuttered for the moment due to the excessive heat and also fire risk. If you think we're having it bad here in this area, as I don't know what anyone's else's, our scale around this area reading, okay, not as bad as it was being predicted. We also have a Calvin Williams with the wave to you as well. Not quite hitting that 110 in our neck of the woods, but yeah, still getting pretty excessively hot out there. But we do have a lot of things also heating up, including that race for the next district attorney with a familiar face and name, if you were watching the news enough, throwing his hat back into the ring. But also, speaking of legal situations, an interesting view from Central America on the ongoing, crisis still facing the border security and immigration issues within this country. Some very interesting out of the area reporting coming specifically from El Paso Matters and specifically editor there, Bob Moore, that we'll talk about a bit, but a little bit closer to home, or at the very least happening right here, if not just affecting us here. Delving further into the spending card controversy that is definitely gripping city council right now and leading to a lot of commentary, conversation, and potential investigation. Still review looking like it's the moment. So as promised, made it available, had an extended conversation with a sitting city rep, Cassandra Hernandez from El Paso City Council, District Number 3, about these issues, her perspective on them, and particularly what she feels is going on with it and the distraction that it brings. But we'll have that full interview for you coming up here in just a bit. Another extended one, another experiment to see if that one works out this way, but it's the best way to think to preserve context as much. Also, John Browson chiming in saying 1994 was the worst heat year in El Paso County. Think I was in town by then? I don't know if I was quite in town by then. I was too young to know when we exactly arrived. I'd have to look it up. But do remember around about that time, I remember I had a friends who told me that there was one year around that time frame when he just didn't wear like long pants, just shorts for 365 days out of that, including over the dead of winter here. So, and Ed Clark's is saying on Rojas Street on the east side buckled from the heat. You know, there was in a street that I've driven by recently, I saw they'd done some new of the, it's not striping, but I guess it's asphalt striping, where they fill in the cracks, crack filling, let's just call it that. And I thought for half a second, wondering, okay, that's a nice and good preventative maintenance thing for them to do. But for half a second, I thought, is it that they did the maintenance or that it's just melting and that's the area where it's doing it around the crack? Because it's been hot enough. I don't know if anyone around here has done the whole egg on a sidewalk experiment or egg on the blacktop, but I feel like it would probably, I wouldn't eat it, recommend it either way, but I feel like it might work just because it's been that sweltering outside. So just remember, they do have the cooling centers open. There's the ability to make donations of fans at fire stations in the region. And if you need one, call 211. So a lot to get into today, a lot of stuff going on. So we're going to quickly go through this first segment to make sure we get to all of our segments as much today. So a couple of things. Let's go straight into the familiar returning face, that of James Montoya, announcing his candidacy for El Paso District Attorney, including in a release sent to our offices here. Pull that one up because it's an interesting fact. I mean, there was a lot of speculation of if after that last turn around, and also Calvin is pointing out, the egg experiment has gotten a lot more expensive. I'll certainly agree with you there. And, Bernadette Bandicoot saying the thermometer used for patient care melted while being in your nursing bag. That's concerning. I've actually had a thermometer experiment ourselves the other day while we were out in let's call it like 2 o'clock, give or take, and one of those infrared thermometers, and was like, oh, okay, let's see what it's like in the truck that we were in. And yeah, in the wheel well, it read like 104, and on the dash read 164. I wish I was making that up. But if you ever wonder when you get in your car and you feel like you're burning your hands on the steering wheel, it's not you being a wussy about it. Like literally, it can be over 150 degrees, and it hadn't even been outside that long. That was after we had driven for a bit, for that matter, and the air conditioning had been blasting the whole time. So never fault yourself. And yeah, it's definitely getting to the point where sunshade, absolutely, but maybe even oven mitts in the car. Anyway, getting to the actual news of the day here, besides the conditions we're all sweltering through, is that, today, June 27th, actually going on during our duration of our show, 5:30 p.m., former District Attorney James Montoya former Assistant District Attorney, forget the assistant in there, don't get it twisted, will announce his candidacy for District Attorney for the 34th Judicial District, which encompasses El Paso, Hudspeth, and Culberson counties today, June 25th, 5:30 p.m. at 501, a bar and bistro located at 501 Texas Avenue. So that will be going on, but noted that, of course, that he previously lost in his race against then candidate, but then did become district attorney, and now former district attorney Ivan Rosales. And just a little bit of, I don't know if you could call it schadenfreude or what have you, though his release note saying, throughout the 2020 campaign, Montoya repeatedly warned that Rosales' inexperience as both a criminal practitioner and as a trial lawyer made her grossly unsuited and unqualified to lead the 90 prosecutors and 100 staff members that comprise El Paso County's, quote, largest law firm. Okay, maybe not... there's a little bit of "I told you so" coming from that statement. I'm just going to put that out there. Whether justified or not, I'll leave that up to y'all individually. And going on about how, okay, yeah, I'm getting more than a little bit of "I told you so" coming from this, including saying Montoya's warning proved to be extremely prescient. And yeah. I'm not saying it's undeserved by any means, but just saying, yeah. And does note that went on to be a U.S. Department of Justice emergency request for crime prosecutors, and dealt with some major cases there, but throwing his hat back into the ring. I guess it's the week for it, though I was getting some rumblings of this previously, I will admit. But with these announcements coming, next race is shaping up, though, of course, it's going to be 2024 once this election ends up taking place. But we've had, of course, some related announcements, best way to put it, including what the non-announcement coming from current state rep Joe Moody about saying, nope, going to stick with the state house, not throwing my hat into this ring. I feel like that was one of the major will he, won't he, how will this shape up those race kind of moments. So with that now in place, getting a little bit clearer, interesting that Montoya willing to throw his hat back into this ring after, it will also say, maybe not totally sour grapes, but saying that a margin of 1,200 votes was what that race was lost to him by in that Democratic primary runoff election. And Mondo Moncada with his own impression of that, saying Vaughn was the John Fetterman of El Paso. I'm going to say there were medical conditions involved in one of these, and not that either one's like totally great, but I haven't heard of any such claims made in this local circumstance. But also RJ saying fried bacon on the steering wheel. Oh boy, and just imagine that those are then your fingers as well. Anyway, we got a lot to get into today, and we're going to go ahead and take that first break of this hour. Again, going to be talking in this coming segment with Cassandra Hernandez, current city rep for El Paso City Council District Number 3, and another extended interview, still trying out that experiment and getting into the depth of it and what she has to say about the situations, what she knew, and her response to what she says is the motivations behind it. So let's go ahead and get into that. You're, of course, tuned in to Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk, back after a bit, and phone calls a little bit later as we usually do. So in any case, stay tuned. More Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound at Thorn, a disabled vehicle is blocking the right shoulder, and you got some backup from Thorn back to Trans Mountain with less than 5-minute delays. On Dyer, northbound at Rushing, an injury accident reported. A crash reported southbound Wrestler at Red, and heavy traffic on Montana Avenue eastbound Geronimo to George Dieter is a 5-minute delay. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Inflation compensation is back.
Oh, yeah.
Demand your supply of $1,000.
$1,000? Oh.
Just listen for the keywords to text in to win $1,000. Happening now.
Listen for your chance to win $1,000 every hour, 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. with the inflation compensation on News Radio 690 AM. Brought to you by Charlie Clark Nissan and Charlie Clark Infinity of El Paso. Orale!
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories.
We'll have the story of our fourth president, James Madison, from Hillsdale College president, Larry Arnn. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Ruli's International Kitchen, your local bar and grill serving up brilliantly inspired international cuisine and local favorites with a gourmet twist for the everyday occasion and special celebrations daily. Now open for dinner Sundays and brunch every weekend. Soups and sandwiches to tapas with stunning main entrees. The favorites you know with new features at the front door daily. Just a great little gourmet dive. 4176 North Mesa Street near Executive Center Boulevard. Give them a call at 915-313-4806 or online at ruleysik.com.
From iHeart Podcasts, Supreme, The Battle for Roe, tells the story of the unlikely champions behind the landmark case Roe v. Wade, starring Maya Hawke as 26-year-old lead attorney Sarah Weddington.
We're challenging the Texas abortion laws in federal court.
And Academy Award nominee William H. Macy as Supreme Court Justice Harry Blackmun.
Time is not the most important factor. Getting it right is.
Listen to the podcast Supreme, The Battle for Roe on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Do you find yourself stuck in a timeshare? Get the real facts about the timeshare industry and your options for cancellation. Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group, has put together a free information guide that reveals the secrets the timeshare industry doesn't want you to know, including the 5 ways to get rid of your timeshare. Call now and get this timeshare cancellation guide absolutely free.
Call 800-334-2266. That's 800-334-2266. 800-334-2266.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch.tv, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. And yeah, if you're all out in your vehicles by any means, hope you're all staying safe, including Ronaldo Rivera saying, now I know what a Whopper feels like when being cooked. And Marco Mendengo saying, I think particularly about the 1994, saying, I remember I was in college in Rhode Island. My grandmother used to send me letters. I think it was over 100 for 30 or more days. Yeah, we got some heat we're dealing with, so stay safe out there and stay hydrated, certainly. But getting into another heated situation, at least it has been focused on quite a lot, that of the spending card controversy currently gripping City Council. Now, of course, we previously had interviews with both one of the filers of the ethics complaint, George Zavala, the filer of the ethics complaint in that case, but also in one of the former city council members that has responded to that and to the whole situation, that of Claudia Lizette Rodriguez. But got the chance to sit down a little bit earlier today with the sitting city council representative, Cassandra Hernandez from District Number 3. Her response taken the policies or lack thereof and what she knew, and beyond that, just the considerations and what the community has been saying and also what she feels is behind it. So we're going to get into that extended interview, another experiment we're working on here today. So here is that interview. Enjoy. Joining us now, we have City Representative Cassandra Hernandez for El Paso City Council, District Number 3. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Happy to have you on to talk about some of the things that have been coming through and coming up in previous subjects of interviews on our airwaves here, specifically that of the situation involving spending cards in general when it comes to City Council, the ones that have been issued to City Council members, that of the gas cards initially, and also now the expanded look into what is going on with the P cards, purchasing cards, I do believe is what that stands for. Also referred to as procurement cards. But in any case, spending cards in general, one of the biggest questions that has come up kind of in the progression of this is what policies are in place and at what point were they put into place. So from your perspective, having served as a city council member now and currently still doing so, what were the policies, the way this was supposed to work, the way you were informed about it?
Just related to the P card.
The spending cards in general. Let's start specifically with the gas cards.
Okay, so let's start with the fuel cards. I think it's important for your viewers and your listeners to know that the fuel cards have been in place for over a decade.
Mm-hmm.
It goes back, and we heard from former city manager Joyce Wilson,
right,
who mentioned that she implemented that during her tenure as a way to make it easier for members of council who, as their duty and their role, are driving throughout the city, meeting with constituents, going to community meetings, going to city council meetings. And then the salaries of city council members were about $28,000 annually.
At that point, they were set each time by votes. They were put to a vote every time there was an increase.
The El Paso voters actually voted to increase the salaries during my time in council. And so I came into council with those salaries as well. Some members of council do this full time. And so it really, your elected officials is really how you hold them accountable. And so you don't have to have community meetings. You don't need to meet with constituents at their home. And I was running a little bit late here today because, it's only 10:30 at the time of this recording. And I've already met with 3 constituents in my district. And so it really depends on the level of engagement from your representatives. So that has been in place since 2008. Essentially, no policies or internal controls or parameters of any definition of any concern of excessiveness have ever been defined by the previous city manager, the current city manager, and the fuel cards have been audited several times throughout that period. And so when I first came into office in June of 2017, I'm approaching my 6-year anniversary. I've been in this role for 6 years. And prior to that, I worked for council for almost 3 years. So, looking at the tenure of members of council, I have the most experience in government at City Hall in the role as a researcher, as an intern, and now as a member of council. Since I've been in office since 2017, we were provided a fuel card and said, this is for your personal vehicle use. There was no policy that was provided to me. There was no training provided to me. In fact, I have known about these fuel cards in my time as a staffer for members of council. I've worked for 2 different city council offices and a third one for temporary time. And those members of council, to the best of my knowledge, have never been provided either a policy, parameters, defined limits. It's always been because it just depends on your level of engagement from your representative.
So then when it came to basically how you then personally conceived of it, what would you say was the intention or the method in which you then employed the gas card in your personal use of it while on city council?
Well, there's some members of council that have gas guzzlers. and I know you've had a guest in the past who talk about, they have bigger vehicles, they use premium gas for members of council who have families. There's a lot of incidental trips I have to take as a matter of being a mother. And I've shared this with my constituents. I have 5 children, all under the age of 10 years old. They all have their own activities. And so as a mother, after my duties, which my duties never end, they're night and day, and even weekends, I do have children that I have to pick up from daycare, pick up from school, or take to practice. And I can't do it by myself because of my work demands. So I lean on my mother and my grandmother and my sister and my husband.
So when it comes then to switching gears slightly to then the purchasing cards, of which there has been a little bit more and was not part of the ethics complaint that was filed by one of your constituents, George Zavala, back at the end of May here. Not part of that because that information was not this time here. So the purchasing cards, either procurement or purchasing P cards in general, when it comes to those policies, my understanding that there was a little bit more detailed information on how that was supposed to be used, right?
Right. And then the one thing I failed to mention about the fuel cards is that our budgets are closely monitored. Every month we have to justify our expenses. We have to submit receipts. Every expense is looked at. And if we can't get past 1 month, then we have departments knocking on our door, seeking receipts, seeking some form of reconciliation of expenses, where to put those expenses. And so for the P cards, it's no different. The P cards, they have spending limits. We have annual budget allocations for office use, and then we have annual allocations for discretionary use for our constituency and our neighborhood association and civic groups. And those P card policies are defined. They have. We also have ordinances that put limits on how much I can use in discretionary funds before I have to seek approval from the entire political body, which is the city council approval by majority. And so I would say that the P cards are a lot more clear, a lot more defined. But it should be noted that not all expenses that we use with our P card are in a form of using taxpayer dollars. Some of them can be grant dollars. And the way it works, so your listeners understand, is that, for example, if I receive a donation, and we received about $85,000 for a new tree keepers initiative where we're going to be planting trees in the neighborhoods on public right of way.
Okay.
And so I have a $25,000 grant donation from El Paso Electric, a $25,000 grant donation from Marathon. The checks are made payable to the city of El Paso. And it goes into when we accept the donation, we take it to city council and say, hey, we have $50,000 in donations. It's going to go to this intended municipal purpose. I'd like to restrict the budget in the name of my office. And then I'm going to use my P card. And every time I make an expense every month, at the end of the month, when I'm reconciling those expenses, I'm going to charge those to this restricted grant account that's available to my office. But you know what? I'm going to be making about $10,000 of tree expenses in the fall. And so I'm going to need a request to increase my P card monthly and daily transactional limits. And to do that takes time to get those approvals from your departments. And when you get those approvals, then you can start making those expenses. But again, those are grant dollars that were never tax, payer funded or ad valorem taxes whatsoever. And it's just important to note that we use the same card, and I have one assigned to me and I have one assigned to my staff. But at the end of the month, we will determine where those expenses go. And that is the most effective and efficient process that governments use. Not all governments in El Paso have that. The city of El Paso does. But nonprofits and that I have worked for have P cards as well, and they use the same mechanism, the same model.
That reconciliation then specifically you're talking about where whatever the spending was done, it's then delineated and then charged to the different accounts like you were talking about there. So essentially, is there any similar type of process that has been in place or has existed then for the gas card use then specifically?
No.
That reconciliation?
There's not. There's no parameters. There's no reconciliation on the part of the elected official. However, the department that oversees fuel expenses is in the street department. The street department has a contract with the vendors, and that is how city council members are able to receive a card. So it's a department within the city of El Paso. There is a policy for city employees who do have an assigned vehicle. So it'll be city fleet. So whether it's a code enforcement vehicle, whether it's a streets department vehicle, police vehicles, firefighters, they are all assigned a fuel card. And that department that oversees are the ones who are closely monitoring those expenses. But there is no policy for elected officials. It's only for city employees with city vehicles.
Right. Then again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is City Representative Cassandra Hernandez for City Council District Number 3. So, and a couple of articles we're going to be referencing here, including one out just the weekend before we are again conducting this interview and recording here from El Paso Inc. of past corruption cast shadow over city ethics inquiry, out as of June 25th. And a previous one that we'll also be referencing will be the El Paso Matters article from June 11th. City Reps Hernandez, Rodriguez drum up largest fuel card bills, spending policies oversight long lacking. So specifically, and referencing the most recent one here, that's in the same vein of the numbers that have been getting talked about here, specifically quoting from about the first major subsection of the El Paso Inc. article under the title headline of City Audit, the subheadline. Quoting directly, Hernandez spent roughly $13,330 since September of 2019, and Rodriguez spent about $10,260 from February 20th to January 2nd of 2023, according to an analysis by El Paso Matters, which obtained city records through a Texas Public Information Act request. So that's a bit further than was the initial look at it. There was approximately $6,600 that was part of the initial look, or the initial review that was done by the city's internal auditor department here that you did your own response to, right? That initial amount, you had a response that you took some action with the city, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So the way city fiscal years start actually begins September 1st of every year. So our next fiscal year will begin September 1st. All reviews and audits align with fiscal years. For some reason, this audit was not aligned with the city's fiscal year. The other thing I want to mention is that, there clearly was a concern from the auditor of what his opinion is excessive. But to be clear, there is no parameters that define excessiveness. But again, I'm a very reasonable person. I work very closely with constituents to try to address or to find remedy to their concerns. And my family and I, we made a decision immediately. If there was a concern about excessiveness, then I wanted to do this in a sincere, earnest desire to bring closure to this issue, because this is exactly the consequence of not working things out internally, administratively, is that we're sitting here having conversations. City auditors are spending excess amount of their time reviewing over and over again these menial, insignificant costs against members of council. There may be political motivations here. And I saw how it exacerbated so quickly. And again, no one from the auditor's office has contacted me. No one from the city of El Paso has asked, can you help justify some of these expenses? I was never afforded that opportunity. And so because of those reasons and because of how it escalated so quickly, I felt the city of El Paso, our constituency, deserves a functional council that's going to focus on the hard work ahead. We have policies that we need to address. We have an increase of crime that is out of control. We have police officers that are retiring, and we need to focus on hiring a police chief and your next city manager. I did this in an earnest, sincere effort to bring closure to this issue, which is why we paid back the cities for all of the authorized expenses, fuel expenses, for the work that I do as part of my work as a city representative. We drive all over the city so that I can physically be in neighborhoods, in parks, at City Hall, doing the work for my constituency. So I'm not concerned. In my opinion, I don't believe this was excessive. They were a greater cost than my colleagues, and I recognize that. But again, we wanted to put this close, which is why we paid back the $6,700.
Okay, $6,700. If I said $6,600 earlier, my mistake. So that was for the 2022 timeframe for that.
Right, and that's a calendar year.
Right,
and again,
for the calendar year.
We're not done with our fiscal year. Our fiscal year ends the end of August.
And so that was done. But of course, again, there has been more that has been raised by the internal auditor, and with, again, some of these other reportings here, again, looking back to, in your case, that what we just quoted there, back to 2019. So when it comes to the expanded purview of this, and then also, again, the inclusion of the P cards, is it your intention to do a similar refund or payback in this case?
Well, we're not done with this fiscal year, and so our family has no intention to pay back any additional dollars. because the fiscal year isn't over. I returned the fuel card back to the city manager's office. I agreed with the auditor that if there is a better way that we can receive a commercial fuel allowance to do city related business, then I agree with that. And so if city council wants to have a conversation about how to put those internal controls in place, I'm all for it. But that's not the conversation they want to have. The conversation they want to have is, got you. That's the conversation they want to have. There's no intention to improve processes. And so that's where I would like the conversation to be redirected and refocused.
So you no longer have possession. You have returned that gas card, you said?
I did immediately. As soon as that report was made public to the public, when you saw the report, I saw the report. In fact, there were many members of the community that had the report before I even did, or former representative whose fuel expenses are also in question.
Representative Rodriguez.
Again,
Rodriguez.
And it is a best practice for your auditor to work with you. I have worked with the auditor for years on issues, whether it be expenses in my office or expenses in departments. I will have one-on-one conversations with the auditor so we can try to find resolve to any issue. That is a best practice. He didn't afford that to me this time. I don't know why he mentioned to members of council that he just didn't. He claims he spoke to former Representative Rodriguez. She also says she's never spoken to him. And so I really question, and I'm very curious why it's been rolled out this way with affording no due process to me or to my family. I'm very curious about that, and I'm very concerned on the way this audit, or excuse me, now the auditor is calling it a review. I'm very concerned with this administrative review and the lack of due process that's been afforded to me.
Let's talk about the process here for a minute. And of course, if you're just joining us, guest right now is, again, current city rep Cassandra Hernandez for City Council District number 3. So one of the actions that has, of course, happened in subject of one of our previous interviews here is that, again, one of your constituents, George Zavala, has filed an ethics complaint based on, again, the gas card usage specifically, filed at the end of May here. And so what he has posted, among other things, publicly, including since we able to interview him, is that he did receive a response as of June 8th from the actual city, signed by the City Ethics Review Commission, and that they accepted his complaint and did say, quote, that Representative Hernandez's use of the city-issued fuel cards describe a matter that is within the jurisdiction of the Ethics Review Commission, in short, commission, and that essentially setting out the timeframes now that your office, you were provided a copy of the complaint, have up to 14 days to respond from that point. And then once you do that by submitting a sworn statement, there would then be a hearing within 30 days after that point. So where does that process stand currently?
So our response on my part will be this Thursday. And I'm sorry, I don't know the date, but it'll be this Thursday that
the 29th,
that I will respond to the complaint. The Ethics Review Commission will convene on July 19th. And so the meeting has already been set.
Okay. So you're, just to make it clear there, your response to be filed, but intended to be filed as of this Thursday.
Correct.
Okay. And so within this sworn statement of the processes here, what can you comment about this process and how it is proceeding?
I mean, first, I'm disappointed that Mr. Zavala hasn't, reached out to me to at least share his concerns with me. His initial reaction was, let me call a press conference and file an ethics review, complaint with the Ethics Review Commission. So that was disappointing because we've had a relationship in the past, and I worked very hard to address his concerns. And more specifically, I help lead and champion efforts to bring dollars to the disability community. I know that's really important to him. So, but I'm not surprised that his reaction was this way when you have all of this being hashed out in the media and you don't have an internal fair process that is going to comply with internal city policies, and your auditor is violating all of those policies. He's not speaking to the members of council whose expenses are in question, when it is his duty to get everyone's side of the story and all the evidence to bring brought forward. Instead, he has presented it this way in a fashion that it's being hashed out in the media. And so I'm not surprised that the public is concerned. And I understand that, and I recognize that. And so I'm disappointed that he didn't call me, but I also recognize why there is confusion on the issue, because these issues should be resolved internally, administratively, and not out in the public through the media. There is a specific internal process to adhere to, and it's not being followed. And so for those reasons, that I will respect the Ethics Review Commission to carry out as it was intended through the ordinance. And my hope is that the Ethics Review Commission can see my side. I can present to them all the information that will, help resolve this issue. And my hope is that we can put this to rest as soon as possible, because again, we're going right into budget season. We got to make, the work that Mr. Zavala does is important. And I have to work to champion those efforts. I need to vote to make sure that we're funding those requests.
So, of course, again, the Ethics Review Commission, like you mentioned, that there is the already hearing date set up for next month here at this point. But then also there have been, other questions being raised. Again, the article title, I will say there from El Paso, I think the one out of this weekend, talking about the shades of previous events, previous eras, and public service in our area that are being brought up in the minds of some when it comes to this. So when it comes to just the public corruption aspects or shades of it that are talked about this, that kind of regardless of policies, guidelines, what you were told of the right way to do it, that some out there are alleging that given the way our community is and that we have some of the poorest zip codes in our country here, that the idea of public funds being used without restriction, even if there isn't a policy against it, is kind of surprising or distasteful to some. So some who are saying that regardless of policy, regardless of what was written down or not, that the use or lack of restricted use of things like this is, well, they're not in favor of it. What do you say to those people who are kind of saying those things out there, both in, the media and in the public in general?
Well, of course, there's got to be some recognition that if there is this quote unquote misuse, then define what that misuse is. And I want to reiterate to those who are concerned that there is no wrongdoing. There is no policy. All of the expenses on my fuel expenses are part of the duties of my work. I have an office in downtown, but I represent one of the largest districts in El Paso. I have the airport. I have the Global Reach area. I have the Lower Valley all the way to Riverside. I have all the way to the northern parts to Hanks High School. So geographically, I have, and population-wise, I have one of the largest districts. I have one of the most active districts. We have very active neighborhood associations in our district and civic associations. You can call all of my neighborhood associations, and I'm really appreciative of their outpouring support, because they recognize how hard I work for the district, and what it takes is for me to be present. That I have to physically drive to communities and vulnerable communities to do the work that I'm doing, to advocate, to be their voice. And so if their concern is that, hey, there's excessive, show me the parameters of what excessiveness, because it clearly coincides with the work that I do daily, including evenings. Sometimes I leave at 7 o'clock in the morning. I don't get home till 9 o'clock at night. On the weekends, I take my children if I don't have childcare. And so it is work that I sacrifice my time with my family, but it is important work that I stood up to do. And I know what I signed up for. And I understand that there's going to be politics involved. But when it's being framed and casted this way, the public should know that these are political adversaries that are hoping that the public loses confidence in me. Because if you look at any council meeting and you watch it, you will recognize that not only am I prepared, that I do my homework, that I read the contracts, that I am well informed on how we can change policy so that it can improve the overall quality of life for El Paso, and so that we can have a more social and just community, and that we have equity for all El Pasoans, regardless of race, sex, gender, or whatever their creed is. And I'm proud of that. My track record speaks for itself, which is why we have so much support from our neighborhood associations. And so all of this is being casted and framed in a way that wants to mislead the public that there is misuse, and there's not. And I can say that with a lot of assurances. And because it's been hashed out in the media, everything's being taken out of context. It's being framed a certain way. But when you meet with me, and I'm happy to meet with constituents at their homes, and I have over the past several weeks, so that we can resolve this. And again, no corruption, no misuse, no wrongdoing, no violation of policy. The El Paso Police Department even initiated an investigation. They said in their determination that it was unfounded and that there is no violation. In fact, the city don't give a fuel card to members of council if there's no policy. And again, this has been this way for decades. Why has this been brought up now? And it was brought up through an anonymous complaint through an election season. When there are complaints during election seasons, that tells the public that this is politically motivated.
besides the general conversation around the concept of corruption and basically the parts that play into it and your perspective there certainly on it, one specific thing that you have responded to yourself, including in the more recent El Paso Inc. article about the way it was being used, there's that video obtained by KVIA reportedly shows your husband filling up a vehicle with the city fuel card, and you've responded saying that you cannot authenticate that video, and so you're not sure of its provenance and exactly what it shows there. But is it essentially your contention then that all of your usage has been primarily within the guidelines of which there was basically none, or that it was in the furtherance of your official duties, the use of the gilt cards?
This is all in my official use of my duty, but I have to reiterate that as a mother, I have a truck. I have a 15-month-old. My truck does not fit a car seat, and so if I'm responsible to pick up my children after hours, then I'm going to take my larger vehicle that can fit all my 5 children. So in a marriage, I lean on my husband and we swap vehicles often. He has in the past helped me as part of my official duties. And we are waiting patiently because the auditor has never afforded us this opportunity to demonstrate his personal fuel expenses that he uses that we can demonstrate in financial transactions. And so we have been waiting patiently to share that. And so my intention is to share that at the Ethics Review Commission. And so if we have these conversations ahead of time and we don't focus on gotcha games and we actually focus on policies and visions, then you're not focusing on attacks on political adversaries, or you're not focusing on personalities. This is what it's come to. This conversation we're having is their clear intention to distract, because the work that they're doing, in my opinion, has been a failed approach to leadership, because we have so much more that we need to do for our community, not focus on fuel cards.
Briefly, then on also the purchasing cards, or again, P cards as the part of it, there has been a significant look at that in more recent weeks, specifically at the amount of spending on that, and among other things, within the city manager's side of things, up to about 6 figures. But when it comes to that, and essentially the allegations that are kind of coming out of this of misuse at that level, how do you respond to those?
So there's this insinuation, and I didn't really address your question earlier about the concern of the video cameras.
No, sure.
And I just want to mention that very quickly. The City of El Paso's Police Department and the city attorney made clear at the last Financial and Oversight Audit Committee that those videos and those documents potentially could be confidential. And so they're not releasing that to the public in any official forum through any Freedom of Information Act or through open records requests. Those have all been retained. However, the FOAC, the members of FOAC, there's 4 members of council that serve on that committee. They requested those videos, and the auditor requested them. So the auditor has access to that video. And what I told El Paso Inc., the reporter, Mr. Reyes, is that I don't know if those videos were released from the auditor's office. I don't. They certainly weren't released in the official capacity from the city of El Paso. So that is why I cannot authenticate those videos. For all I know, those videos could be fabricated. So I don't know the timestamp. I don't know the date. I don't know a chain of custody of those documents. If they're not coming from law enforcement, then I can't speak to it, and I cannot authenticate that video. And so that's our position on that. And so your follow-up question was what?
Then on the purchasing card side of things, that essentially there have been allegations of misuse, of overuse on that, and whereas there are more stringent requirements on that, particularly spending limits, like you mentioned, essentially that there were times when the spending limit was achieved and then achieved again, like the roughly about $1,000, I think is what the reporting has been on that, and that were multiple charges along those lines of the use of the P cards. And again, there has been, of course, also the what's going on with the city manager part of things, where there was about 6 figures, low 6 figures spent out of that office specifically. So when it comes to the newer parts of this whole, again, spending card story that has been going around, when it comes to the usage of that, how do you respond to the ideas or essentially the allegations that are being made about misuse at that level?
I mean, in my opinion, it's important that we review all the concerns of misuse. I mean, that is the work that we do day in and day out, monthly. We reconcile those expenses. And the way it's been framed, in my opinion, is manufactured. There's no problem, there's no concern. What you are seeing, those expenses for the city manager's office, he has marching orders that comes from your political body, from your city council, in a form of what we call a budget resolution.
Mhm.
And so those expenses out of his office are reconciled every month, and you have to demonstrate how it meets the budget resolution. And so whether or not it's 100,000 or 600,000, we have a 1.2, now upcoming $1.3 billion budget.
Mhm.
And we have categories and expenses for every department, including the city manager's office. And so your city manager is going to have one of the highest expenses because he makes a lot of the expenses on behalf of City Hall and on behalf of City Council. And so there, in my opinion, there's nothing wrong there. But if there's a concern, every expense should be, combed through a fine tooth comb, and it should be evaluated. But the way it's being released month over month over month, in my opinion, was clearly manufactured to distract the constituency of El Paso from the bad work that's been happening in the past 6 months and the decisions this council has made in the past 6 months, which have been incredibly costly to the taxpayer. And so that is where we should be focusing on, is how do we make prudent, financially responsible decisions on behalf of the taxpayer while simultaneously addressing our mission, our vision, this effort for economic prosperity for all and economic development. That is our clear vision through our strategic plan. All of this other stuff is noise.
So then, beyond any of these specific allegations, I guess just to, again, the concept that kind of exists in the community of that this is not in keeping with the values of the community, the usage at this level or unrestricted use of it. How do you respond to that? I mean, very similar in kind of the way of, the idea of public corruption, but those just saying like, no, this was even at its own base level, kind of ridiculous or outrageous in its own level. How do you respond to people with like that kind of concern?
I mean, the city government is so nuanced. And so if I were to sit down with all my budgets for every department, including members of council, to sit down and give a budget course, and I have experience teaching college courses in state and local government, and I also have experience serving on the Financial and Oversight Committee. I've served almost 2 years. And so when I say that I'm an experienced tenured member of council, I've been trained not only educationally, but I do my part to educate others as well. And I'm happy to hash that out. It's incredibly nuanced. But having so much experience in city government, I can say like clearly that the issue with the spending limits, it doesn't matter because she already had a city council approval. And so they're conflating issues because there's one policy here, but it may not be applicable for a specific expense. Well, the city manager has expenses that exceed over 500,000. It's not unrestricted because there is a budget resolution that gives the office the authority to make those expenses line item by line item, issue for issue, department by department. And so because the media is telling you that, I understand why the public is concerned, but we can say that there are parameters and internal controls for our expenses with our P card. Everything has to be justified either by way of a vote from council or through the budget resolution. There are no unrestricted expenses. It's all a matter of optics.
Then to your specific allegations of this being a playing of politics, what impact do you feel that this has had on in the progression of this over the past couple of months at this point, with the initial investigation or review by the auditor and now the potential retaining of an outside auditor to come in and look at this, to do a forensic audit, all those possibilities? What impact do you feel that this has had on city business and city priorities?
I mean, I think it's casted certainly a negative shadow and cloud over of council and the work that we even done, some of the good work that we have done, and we do. But for me, this is, these are politics. This, I know what I signed up for, and I know that this is going to happen. But it's really important that we all stand in unity for this upcoming budget. This upcoming budget is going to be critical with rising appraisal values on homes, with the lack of direction from our state government on what kind of property tax relief we're going to see. And this other stuff, I think it was maybe a fumble from this new council at the onset, from day one, from literally the first meeting. And so now here we are 6 months later. We got to do as much work as they put into the politics as the work I hope that they put into saving property tax dollars so that we can bring much needed relief. And so, folks can try, political operatives can try to distract, but I remain focused on my work for my district. It is so critical that we just continue to do the work ahead. And going into budget season next month, we have to demonstrate how we can work together to save those dollars, but to simultaneously give the much needed employee raises so that I can provide essential services to El Pasoans. I need more police officers. Those academies are very costly. We just approved collective bargaining agreements for our firefighter and our police associations. And that is going to guarantee them benefits and in a state of an economy and in a nation where nobody wants to be a public safety officer or a police officer. And so we should be working harder to attract our future workforce and to create conditions of that workforce. We have 7,000 employees that we fund in our budget. We are the 4th largest employer in the city of El Paso. There's real work that has to get done. And so all of this merely is a distraction. I'm so regretful. And I've told people that it plays a heavy role on me that some of this stuff is being hashed out for political motivations when there are El Pasoans that are counting on their elected local officials to do important work to help save them money in their pocketbooks. And I'm committed to doing that. And my hope is that members of council and the mayor continue as well.
What would you be ideally seeing the resolution to this, both in terms of the audits or the audit review and the, again, spending card situation in general, and also as well as the, upcoming and ongoing business to city council?
Well, I mean, it starts with leadership. Leadership has to commit, whether it be city management or city council leadership, they have to commit to focus on their vision and policies. It starts from the top. And then you have city employees that, in my opinion, are experiencing very low morale. We have large levels of vacancy in certain departments, and there are some services that we can't even procure because a lot of folks don't like doing work and doing business with the city. It's the nature of having, working with governments. And so if we can find resolve from the top leadership to put a commitment to focus on saving taxpayer dollars, being innovative with technology, bringing new ideas and policies forward that are going to improve the overall wellness and health and economic prosperity for El Pasoans, then that, in my opinion, would be a resolve. Because all of this other things, put a policy in place. Put a policy in place if you're concerned. And then that's what we do as legislators, is that we put policies in place and then we move forward. Of course, the Ethics Review Commission, I'm waiting patiently so that we can have our day to communicate to those commissioners about, there's no wrongdoing here. Everything I do is in my official capacity. But also I've raised over $100,000 in just the past couple of years to do important work for my district. I have 18 months left in my term. And so my expectation for the rest of my term, I cannot run for re-election for my seat. I've already served 2 terms.
Right.
Is that my constituency have a lot of loose ends that I need to help close in preparation for that transition for a new elected leader for this role.
Again, guest in studio with us right now has been Cassandra Hernandez, City Representative for El Paso, District Number 3. Find anything more about those efforts and get in contact with her office, elpasotexas.gov, and look under District 3. So, Representative Hernandez, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us, lay out some of these issues and your responses to them here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, no, we definitely got to take that break right now. Might be stretching the limits of what we can do with these extended interviews, but we'll go ahead and open up those phone lines. If you want to get on the line, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso and the top of the hour news here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 news update. A teenage boy was shot while attending a house party early this morning. That shooting happened in the 12,000 block of Campo Bello in San Elizario. The El Paso County Sheriff's Office investigated the call as an aggravated assault. Deputies say that the 16-year-old was shot at about 2:30 this morning and hospitalized. Investigators at the scene say that all the individuals involved were juveniles. A former district attorney has announced his candidacy to become the next DA in El Paso. James Montoya previously ran for DA in 2020 and lost in a runoff to former DA Yvonne Rosales by a margin of 1,200 votes. Throughout the 2020 campaign, he repeatedly warned that Rosales' inexperience made her unqualified for the job. Eventually, Rosales resigned late last year. In the interim, Montoya has worked as a federal prosecutor and a public defender. This has been your KFOX 14 news update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 eastbound at Lee Trevino, a 3-vehicle accident is off to the right shoulder, slowing traffic. El Paso police responding to a crash southbound Wrestler at Red. Slow traffic on Global Reach now up to a 19-minute delay southbound approaching Montana Avenue. And heavy traffic Montana eastbound McRae out to Zaragoza, 9-minute delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. Looks like another hot one for our Wednesday. Heat advisory for tomorrow. Also air quality alert for tomorrow. Try to limit your time outdoors, especially during the hottest part of the day. High around 107 for our Wednesday. Partly cloudy on Thursday, high about 105. We'll see a 10% chance of a storm on Friday with a high around 104 degrees. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio. I'm Brian Shook. Flight delays and cancellations continue to pile up due to severe weather. According to FlightAware, over 5,200 flights have been delayed within, into, or out of the U.S. so far today. Smoke from Canadian wildfires is once again drifting down to the U.S. Lisa Taylor has the details.
The air quality in Chicago and Minneapolis ranked as the worst in the world among major cities Tuesday. Detroit ranked as the 4th worst. Smaller cities in the Great Lakes region like Grand Rapids, Michigan, saw even worse air quality. Conditions there reached code purple, the 2nd worst air quality index reading. The smoky condition comes just weeks after the Northeast was blanketed by smoke caused by the wildfires in Canada. I'm Lisa Taylor.
Former President Trump claims he did nothing wrong discussing what prosecutors say were classified documents with his staff and others after he left office. While rallying New Hampshire, Trump took time out to say he and his staff were going through a lot of things besides the documents, like magazines, for instance. Trump was responding to a CNN audio recording of a 2021 meeting where he discusses holding on to the secret documents. The White House is trying to get its message across to voters that President Biden's economic policies are working.
When you ask people about how they feel about reshoring manufacturing jobs and investing in America, those things are incredibly popular. And we find that when we go out and we talk to people about it, they support Bidenomics.
Principal Deputy Press Secretary Olivia Dalton told reporters the president on Wednesday will highlight the work his administration has done to turn the economy around during a major speech in Chicago. The outgoing director of the CDC warns America isn't prepared for the next pandemic. Dr. Rochelle Walensky wrote an op-ed for the New York Times Tuesday, ahead of her tenure coming to an end on Friday. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. A child molestation lawsuit against Michael Jackson is being allowed to go to trial. Phil Hewlett has the details.
Choreographer Wade Robeson claims the music icon molested him at Neverland Ranch when he was between the ages of 7 and 14. According to TMZ, Robeson is suing Jackson's corporation, MJJ Productions. Lawyers for the company argued that it had no legal duty to protect Robeson or an ability to control Jackson, but a court of appeals disagreed and sent the claim back down for trial.
Meta is rolling out new parental supervision tools for Instagram, Facebook, and Messenger. Parents will now be able to see how much time their teen spends on Messenger and also view updates to their contacts list. They'll also be able to control who's able to message their teen on the app. When it comes to how much money one needs to comfortably retire, Americans have a magic number in mind. Aaron Real reports
1.27 million. That's the magic number Americans say they need to retire comfortably, according to new research from Northwestern Mutual. It's up from 1.25 million last year. You can thank inflation for that. Respondents in their 50s expect to need the most when they retire, more than 1.5 million. For those in their 60s and 70s, those expectations dropped to less than $1 million. The biggest retirement worry was declining health, followed by outliving one's savings and boredom. Social Security benefits may cover some of those monthly income needs, and respondents said that they expect those benefits to cover about 28% of their overall retirement funding.
Pickleball injuries are costing Americans nearly $400 million. The fast-growing sport is taking a toll on injury-prone seniors' legs, wrists, and shoulders. Analysts estimate pickleball injuries will result in 67,000 emergency room visits, 366,000 outpatient visits, and 9,000 outpatient surgeries this year. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Cash. That's cash. Enter it now.
Get your tickets now
At AXS.com.
for our 2023 iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Coming back to Las Vegas.
2 nights,
September 22nd and 23rd.
1 stage,
At T-Mobile Arena.
streaming live only on Hulu.
This is the iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Buy your tickets for our 2023 iHeartRadio Music Festival now
Before they sell out.
at AXS.com.
That's AXS.com.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. Shopping for new blinds? At Blindster, we offer over 50 different blinds, shades, and shutters at low prices, custom made for your windows, and shipping is free. Shop at home and order 10 free samples of any product before you buy. Blindster.com.
From iHeart Podcasts, Supreme, The Battle for Roe, tells the story of the unlikely champions behind the landmark case Roe v. Wade, starring Maya Hawke as 26-year-old lead attorney Sarah Weddington.
We're challenging the Texas abortion laws in federal court.
And Academy Award nominee William H. Macy as Supreme Court Justice Harry Blackmun.
Time is not the most important factor. Getting it right is.
Listen to the podcast Supreme, The Battle for Roe on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to the good stuff. I'm Jacob Schick, a third-generation combat Marine.
And I'm his co-host and wife, Ashley Schick. We believe everyone has a story to tell, not only about the peaks, but the valleys they've been through to get them to where they are today. We're joined by some amazing guests who share the lessons they've learned that shaped who they are and what they're doing to pay it forward and give back.
Listen to the good stuff on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcast.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. Shopping for new blinds? At Blindster, we offer over 50 different blinds, shades, and shutters at low prices, custom made for your windows, and shipping is free. Shop at home and order 10 free samples of any product before you buy. Blindster.com.
Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop, opt out.
My drinking had become a problem. Too many nights waking up at 3 a.m., sweating, head pounding, self-loathing, and anxiety hitting me hard. Thinking, how did I do this again? What's wrong with me? Why can't I stop?
If you're finally ready to stop drinking completely or just want to drink less, naltrexone could help you. Naltrexone is an FDA-approved medication that reduces cravings and pleasure from drinking, making it easier to drink less or quit alcohol altogether. And you can see improvement almost immediately. Whether your challenges with alcohol are mild, moderate, or severe, or health makes it simple to get started with treatment. Just text PROBLEM to 323232 to get a secure link to our private online assessment. One of our licensed medical professionals will evaluate your assessment, and if medication is right for you, prescribe it directly online. We'll deliver your prescription right to your front door. No doctor's office visits required. You really can stop drinking or just drink less. Text PROBLEM to 323232 to get started today. Text the word PROBLEM to 323232. Text PROBLEM to 323232.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for joining in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of people tuning in, chiming in over there will be popping up. Some of them, one of which almost got me in the middle of it. You know who you are. But those dropping those likes and reacts that we obviously appreciate as well. Amber Bonda, Bernadette Bandicole, Louis Zimmerman, Calvin Williams, Robbie Flores, Fluffy Menace, Ida Beza Gardner, and James Holmes. You don't have to like necessarily the topic, but if you appreciate the ability to talk about it, getting into it here, we've got a lot, so we appreciate it. And we got a lot of stuff getting into here, including comments coming over from the Twitch stream as well. Mondo Moncanda saying, after hearing the interview with Cassandra, I believe she is an honest person. A lot of interesting different opinions coming in over there, including on body language or on concerns about politicians enriching themselves, but also some other ones like John Browson saying the city manager wasn't doing his job. He was fired, but now he's a millionaire. Watch city council repeat their mistake with the new city when the new city manager is hired. I mean, even if it isn't totally up to that level of that, $900,000 payout immediately for any new city manager, he started at in the $200,000 range. So there's some creep that has certainly happened there. Anyway, we of course got those phone lines open, if full up at the moment. I'm sure people got a lot to say about this, so we'll get into as many comments as we can throughout the rest of this hour. Keep that number handy though, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. So let's go and just dive straight into that right now. We do have Johnny in Central on the line with us here right now. Johnny, thanks for joining us.
Yes, good afternoon, Andrew. I have to say, I was very impressed with the interview.
Okay.
By the interviewer and the interviewee. I've been living in this area for about 2 or 3 decades, and I learned a lot. I learned more in these last 30 or 40 minutes about El Paso than I've learned all my time here. I was impressed with her. She seemed like, I think you said one of her callers say, she seemed to be honest. And she seemed to be, now I notice why she was so calm when all these questions were being thrown at her these last few weeks, because she knew that she felt that she was doing the right thing. And I'm impressed with her. She has 5 kids and trying to, run all over the place. And I was in the salary of $28,000 a year. I get it now. And she really opened my eyes about a lot of things. You know how sometimes things come out and we only hear one side, and we form our own concerns, and already ready to convict people. But she really opened all the doors, and I think that she solved all of my questions. The only thing that I didn't hear, maybe I didn't hear you ask her, and maybe she couldn't have answered. I still wasn't too happy about the city manager's salary.
Slightly of a different issue, I will say that. I mean, there were a lot of questions coming up. One of them being asked was, did you directly address each allegation individually? Are you running for office again? And who brought the charges specifically? So I think we got, a lot of the questions were being asked also about the truck fill-up. So most of the ones that came up, or that we had in mind beforehand, I think we got to pretty much most of those, even if also do gotta say that there was a lot of other people also in the comments. That was just the most recent one there from Mondo Moncada over on the Twitch stream. A lot of others taking issue with it or not totally buying it. I'll characterize some of those things that way. So there are some mixed emotions going on in our comments, but and like one saying about how much reps get paid. Yeah, it is now pegged to the average household income in El Paso for city reps, and it's 1.5 times that for the mayor of El Paso. So I think it was what it was versus what it is now. But I mean, there's reasons to go about this. And one of the things, of course, we'll be looking at is what's coming next. That with the City Ethics Commission, that can play moving forward. So finding out about that specific date being set for roughly middle of the next month is very important. And one of the things we'll definitely have to keep our eye on. Hopefully we'll find out more about what the responses have been specifically by that point as well.
Well, again, I was impressed. I think you did. I think you conducted a very good interview, and I was impressed with her. And I know she said she has 18 more months to go. I don't know what the rules are here, but I'd like to see her run again, because if not for that job, something else, because I was very impressed with her. That being said, I'll hang up and let somebody else get in, Andrew. Thank you very much.
Sure thing. Thank you very much for the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Okay.
Yeah, she will be termed out of this office, but of course that doesn't preclude other offices. I think like city council is out, though. Mayorship, I'm not putting any ideas out in there in the universe. I'm just saying the span of them, including other county positions, things like that would potentially work. So let's go ahead and get to more on the phone lines here. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Eric on the east side here with us right now. Eric, thanks for joining us.
Hello there. Yeah, I share many of Johnny's sentiments, about that interview and Cassandra. But I know conservative talk radio hosts like yourself have to promote certain things. But yesterday I called in to correct some misinformation you were promoting about the 2 university medical center bonds. Namely, you had said that the UMC bond most recently passed involved the creation of a cancer treatment center. It didn't. And
no, it does not. Let's make that perfectly clear. I believe the conversation you're talking about when this originated from was we were talking about the new one, you were talking about the old one. So we got to cross purposes. So I will freely admit that. Yes.
Yeah, you said, and I quote, so when you switch gears to talk about a different cancer center, there was only one cancer center in those 2 bonds. So it was implied
Correct.
I was talking about the old UMC bond, the one that the Out of Town Libre Initiative and El Paso's conservative shutdown with their petition, that would have created a much needed comprehensive cancer treatment facility that is still much needed here. I wanted to emphasize that and correct that also. Like many cancer-stricken El Pasoans currently have to travel out of town for some types of life-saving cancer treatment, even if they're insured. Like they can get some forms of life-saving cancer treatment here in El Paso, but for other types of treatment, they still have to travel out of town. I was not saying there weren't some treatments for cancer in El Paso that they can't get here, just that there's not all of that is needed. So that need is still here. And also,
Granted.
Untreated cancer kills people, and the poor and uninsured's lack of access to health care kills people. And when you reduce access to life-saving health care, people die. And when you increase access to life-saving health care, they live. And uninsured children and adults unnecessarily die all the time simply because life-saving health care is not accessible due to being uninsured or poor. Like, these are all facts.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to agree with you on a couple of points here that, yes, increasing access is an important thing. That increasing healthcare in general in our region has been a multi-decade effort that has been transformational in its own right and certainly very important. It's increased in other ways, like they got the chance to tour not too long ago the dental school that exists over the Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center and the clinics that come along with that. So accessibility, all these things are very important. But I will say, particularly say about decreasing access can increase deaths coming from this. In what way does the action that has previously been taken decrease access, to bring up that point specifically?
That $350 million UMC bond would have created a $78 million comprehensive cancer treatment center that would save the lives of El Paso's uninsured children and adults, and it would have only came at an $8 tax added to the property taxes per month. Like, you've compared that to killing a person to save 1,000, the ends justifying the means, and doing anything to
Let's make it perfectly clear. I wasn't making a comparison there. I was asking you the question, which don't think I didn't notice you didn't answer this one either, about how you feel that not voting for it decreases access. Here's the answer to that one, since I don't expect you to answer this one either. It didn't decrease anything. It didn't increase the capacity, but by saying these people are signing anyone's death warrants, you're acting as if they're shuttering something that already exists, and they didn't. Yes, most people about what they think about the bonds, most of the sentiments that were expressed by other callers in this show or people that I spoke with when they were opposed to that bond, anyone who signed it anyway that I had a chance to talk with, was about them saying, not necessarily that they're opposed to more medical treatment. There were some questions about, say, is this the best way for it to be provided? Shouldn't private industry be handling this? Are we crowding it out? Those kind of things. But most of them were saying this is too much of an expense at this time as we're emerging from a pandemic. So, I mean, your characterization, as much as you love talking about characterizations of saying these people, portraying them as anything close to bloodthirsty, callous people who don't give two shakes of a lamb's tail about anyone else here, I'm going to call that a little inaccurate. So, to answer the questions that you're not answering, no, it didn't decrease access. It did not create new access. I will agree with you on that point. But also, the ends do not justify the means. It was meant to be an extreme example to illustrate how ridiculous of a point that it is. Saying that, well, it's a good goal, therefore anything should be done for it, is never a reasonable position. So you and I, just to bring it home here, do agree that more access is a good thing, but finding a way to actually make it work as well, means testing, put it another way, is also important. You got to at least agree with that, at least in a slightest bit, right?
When you increase access to life-saving healthcare, people don't die. So you keep playing your conservative games that at the expense of El Paso's children and uninsured.
Okay, I want to ask you sincerely here, of the things I just mentioned, I mean, we mentioned some other people's points here, but you like throwing out conservative like it's an epithet, as if it's oh man, that's a bad person there. I've given them a bad name. But even of the things I literally just said about the accessibility, that increased accessibility is a good thing, what of these particularly strike you as specifically conservative points? I'm really concerned here that you're not actually listening to what I'm saying, but you're taking, like, aggregating all the other things that you try to hold apart this station, among other things. But again, listen to what I'm saying. Personal request here. Of those things I've just talked about, you constantly accuse me of lobbying. Are you taking lobbying as me saying anything you disagree with, even if we're just talking to the other involved parties with it?
When you compare $8 per month in property taxes to ends justifying the means and killing a person to save 1,000, that's you fear-mongering.
Again, not a comparison.
For your listeners to blindly oppose these UMC bonds that would save El Pasoans' lives. These are conservative lies.
You do realize I wasn't saying that $8 a month is trying to kill someone, right? That was, again, the ridiculous example. So if you're agreeing that it's a ridiculous example, again, we're agreeing. Here's the thing that you've never actually referenced or don't actually want to, because I'm guessing it makes you feel icky because of all the names you give it here. We agree on a lot more than you have ever been willing to say. So I'm going to toss you a fair question here. Let's see if you actually answer this one. Do you and I agree that healthcare is an important thing in our area? Would you agree with that?
You don't agree with that. You're lying. Conservative lies.
So, okay, I'm very glad that you're here to inform me of my values. It's super helpful for me. It saves me a whole lot of time here. So I really don't even get your line and your reasoning and your point when you say something like that. You don't actually want someone to agree with you. You just want them to capitulate to you, is what this is kind of coming down to, because literally we're agreeing. And anytime I agree with you, you seem to always accuse me of lying, as if it's impossible for people to hold what you consider conflicting ideals at the same point here. So here's the thing, Eric. You don't actually seem to be interested in discussion. You don't seem to actually be interested in getting to a resolution. You just want everyone that you disagree with and give the labels that you do. This is part of the reason I've started going with the whole mini Mussolini thing, because it doesn't matter what someone else says. If they at all contravene you, you seem to oppose them, looking at your own history and comments and those kind of things here. So we got to take that next break right now, as much as I would love to continue on this particular discussion. The long format that you seem to be looking for here is primarily reserved for actual guests. And maybe if we ever have one of these in-person events, I'll reserve the whole couple of hours just for us to go off into a publicly visible room to hash all of this out. Anyway, appreciate the point in the call for what it's worth, as long as we're at least talking about local things. So let's go ahead and take that break. Coming out of this break, we're going to be taking more calls, more comments, more of everything we do at this point during the show. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break. Again, that phone number line available right now. Here's a hint: 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso fires responding to an accident northbound Joe Battle after Edgemere. Paisano Drive eastbound at Piedras, site of another accident. El Paso police still working a crash southbound Wrestler at Red. I-10 eastbound at Lee Trevino, that earlier crash is cleared. All lanes back open there. Terry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories.
You might be driving right now, and if you are, this story is right in front of you: the surprising history of road lane markings. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online? Just go to 4hims.com/radio. Through Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, a 100% online process, and trusted generic alternatives to the name brands at up to 95% off. That's right. Get generic for Viagra, the same active ingredient as brand name Viagra, but for 95% less. It's the same medication, still prescribed by a licensed medical provider, but with zero copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, 4hims.com/radio. That's 4hims.com/radio for your free online visit. FORHIMS.com/RADIO.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-989-8906 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-989-8906. That's 800-989-8906. What do you have to lose? Call 800-989-8906. Again, 800-989-8906.
Caring for a loved one takes emotional, physical, and mental strength. When you're giving your all, who's supporting your needs as a caregiver? Find resources at texascaregivers.org. Brought to you by Texas Health and Human Services.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. Shopping for new blinds? At Blindster, we offer over 50 different blinds, shades, and shutters at low prices, custom made for your windows, and shipping is free. Shop at home and order 10 free samples of any product before you buy. Blindster.com.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. And a lot of conversation about previous callers and such things like that, but we are still taking those phone calls, of course, squeezing in what we can throughout the rest of this hour. Full up at the moment, but keep that number handy. Again, we try to make it clear whenever their line becomes open. 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. And a lot of conversation, but a lot of issues. But again, we'll squeeze in what we can. And we, of course, got more days coming this week. It's probably be spreading over, it feels like. Anyway, getting back to those phone lines here right now. We do at the moment have Jesse over in Central on the line with us here right now. Jesse, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
I'm coming to support Cassandra very much.
Okay.
Why do I support her? She's my representative. She's one of the few people or representatives who works full time. The other part is she has meetings twice a month, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. Give me questions, anything, I get to meet her, I get to see her, and she's like pretty good. About the gas. Did you know that it's only gas money? It doesn't pay for insurance or car or anything else. So she's using a personal car, and all they pay her is for the gasoline, and that's it. They don't pay for insurance or anything else. The other part, she's one of the few representatives who was against Proposition K. There's about 3 reps who were on the fence who said, no, we don't know about that. The mayor did not support, wasn't against Proposition K. He stood on the fence. So I'm very proud of her. She's done a great job. And whatever she does in the future, or I hope she does well. I mean, I know she's going to do well, but I have nothing but praise about Cassandra. She's pretty good. And what else can I say?
Okay, so when it comes to, these investigations, then what's coming on with it, I may put a question to you then, is here, I guess, what do you want to see as the outcome? Do you feel that the money should be repaid, that is being talked about as being, if not misspent, being spent more than, at least comparison to other reps?
Right, because, there's other reps there who work part-time. The mayor works, I don't know about the mayor, he works part-time, but I've seen her, in the mornings, in the afternoons. She's the only one that I know who works full-time. And so, to say, well, she uses too much gas money, but they don't pay for anything else, just the gas, which is ridiculous.
Fair enough. Well, appreciate the point, the call, and appreciate you sharing your opinion there. You have a good one.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. And with that, we'll continue on with the phone calls here. And to clarify, there was the initial repayment, but that was of the, again, $6,700 from specifically in the year 2022. So talking about the other amounts that have been looked at, again, it's roughly like $13,000 in total being talked about for specifically Rep. Hernandez as being the current amounts as being looked at by the El Paso chief officer in his review, and then also the purchasing card. So taking more calls here, we do have Raul in the Northeastern line with us here right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Well, in my opinion, El Paso's leaders, political, city and county governments, and UTEP should be working on bringing down the cost of living. specifically the cost of energy. They need to be capitalizing on it by investing in solar energy, heat pumps, biomass, trash, turning crap and trash into energy, and getting off the grid and exporting energy and electricity to bring outside dollars in, because El Paso's never going to be a manufacturing center, and the whole country's, we're 70% of our GDP is from services, not manufacturing. And
Sure.
we could be using that energy to desalinate the Hueco Bolson's aquifer, the brackish aquifer underneath there, and turn the desert into an oasis and a source of food in our food desert, which we live in. We have to import just about all our food. If anything ever went south, we're going to be up that proverbial creek. Former Fort Bliss Commanding General Dana Petard, who actually went to high school here in El Paso, he had a vision for Fort Bliss and put a lot of solar panels on Fort Bliss's many buildings and soldiers' housing. And El Paso really should adopt his vision for El Paso rather than the El Paso plutocrats' vision, which is more corporate welfare for them. Yeah, and speaking of Fort Bliss and the general, going to war with Iran would affect El Paso through Fort Bliss. And how about Trump's chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, who's President Biden kept in that position, is supporting to have said that Trump wanted to attack Iran to stay in the presidency. A wag the dog operation. And Trump was recorded saying that General Milley said that, but lied about it, saying that that was Milley's idea to attack Iran. Now, if it's going to get down to believing Trump or this General Milley, I'm going to go with General Milley, okay? Trump, and here's the thing, Trump's indictment makes reference to an audio recording of this. I'm sure you've heard the recording, right, Andrew?
Yeah, definitely heard clips of it, even if we're doing a very tenuous local association. Don't think that one's just passing right by me here. To the actual local part you're talking about there, whenever it comes to, I've been to like the 1st Armored Division headquarters that has that field of solar panels next to it over on Fort Bliss. And I've seen more of the installations, more of those kind of things being put on here. Some comments coming up also within the comment stream about that. And some people's implications, like Stephen Christopher saying the soldiers do not benefit from that. An argument to be made there, and base housing has its own issues, both locally and nationally, that I'm very much aware of. But in the idea of having more ability to do it, I'm not personally opposed to it by any means. It hasn't made sense for us personally to do it on our house. The actual, just the construction of it didn't quite work out, or at very least doesn't make sense at this particular point in time. May look at it in the future. I'm not opposed to it personally. Anyone willing to do it, there's a number in my neighborhood, and I've seen an increasing amount. It might not be a bad way to do it. Don't think the way it's structured currently, and not sure if it's actually like banned by state law, but it's certainly not required by state law either, to make it so that there is the the non-fees or the actual ability to sell it back. There might be. It's a little bit hard. I've been perusing this for a couple of weeks now, actually trying to find places where you can do the net metering billing with your company of choice here, mostly in the places where there are like multiple options. Again, not present in our area. It's not offered by it. Does not seem to be prohibited by state law, but also competition and other things like that seem to be a major factor in it. But even then, the actual specific policies and how it ends up working ends up being more than a little bit Byzantine. So if that were to happen, I think that could further flourish it in our region. And we are the Sun City and all that good stuff, but don't necessarily see the Texas legislature moving on that one anytime soon, at least given the priorities that are being talked about so far. And as much as for the other part of it, listen, Friday is coming, as it always is. So you want to get into some of those recordings and stuff like that, we certainly can then. But appreciate the point of the call for what it's worth in the local aspects. In the meantime, let's go ahead and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we will talk more about what's going on and affecting us here in the borderlands. So if you want to get on that line, of course, phone lines open now, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 news update. A teenage boy was shot while attending a house party early this morning. That shooting happened in the 12,000 block of Campo Bello in San Elizario. The El Paso County Sheriff's Office investigated the call as an aggravated assault. Deputies say that the 16-year-old was shot at about 2:30 this morning and hospitalized. Investigators at the scene say that all the individuals involved were juveniles. A former district attorney has announced his candidacy to become the next DA in El Paso. James Montoya previously ran for DA in 2020 and lost in a runoff to former DA Ivan Rosales by a margin of 1,200 votes. Throughout the 2020 campaign, he repeatedly warned that Rosales' inexperience made her unqualified for the job. Eventually, Rosales resigned late last year. In the interim, Montoya has worked as a federal prosecutor and a public defender. This has been your KFOX 14 news update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
El Paso police responding to a crash Alameda at North Carolina. An earlier accident southbound Wrestler at Red. Slow traffic on the I-10 eastbound from Trans Mountain over to the Patriot. It's a 7-minute delay. And that earlier crash on I-10 eastbound at Lee Trevino has cleared. All lanes back open. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. It looks like another hot one for our Wednesday. Heat advisory for tomorrow. Also air quality alert for tomorrow. Try to limit your time outdoors, especially during the hottest part of the day. High around 107 for our Wednesday. Partly cloudy on Thursday, high about 105. We'll see a 10% chance of a storm on Friday with a high around 104 degrees. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
This week on Red Pilled America, we talked to former Deputy Assistant to President Trump, none other than Sebastian Gorka himself. He has a unique insight that we think you're going to want to hear. Join the independent media revolution and listen to Red Pilled America anywhere you get podcasts. That's Red Pilled America.
Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message data rates may apply. Reply stop, opt out.
My drinking had become a problem. Too many nights waking up at 3 a.m., sweating, head pounding, self-loathing, and anxiety hitting me hard. Thinking, how did I do this again? What's wrong with me? Why can't I stop?
If you're finally ready to stop drinking completely or just want to drink less, naltrexone could help you. Naltrexone is an FDA-approved medication that reduces cravings and pleasure from drinking, making it easier to drink less or quit alcohol altogether. And you can see improvement almost immediately. Whether your challenges with alcohol are mild, moderate, or severe, or health makes it simple to get started with treatment, just text PROBLEM to 323232 to get a secure link to our private online assessment. One of our licensed medical professionals will evaluate your assessment, and if medication is right for you, prescribe it directly online. We'll deliver your prescription right to your front door. No doctor's office visits required. You really can stop drinking or just drink less. Text PROBLEM to 323232 to get started today. Text the word PROBLEM to 323232. Text PROBLEM to 323232.
How pain turned an avid outdoorsman into a frustrated indoorsman. Meet Ron.
I was always active. Fishing, swimming, hiking.
Until his flat feet brought it all to a grinding halt.
It is sharp pain shooting up your leg to your back.
And the pain was just the beginning.
When you're hurting, you can't move. So I ended up being a couch potato and my health declined.
Fortunately, Ron had someone in his corner.
My wife said, that's it. I'm going to take you to the Good Feet store,
where he was personally fitted for arch supports.
I took one step. There was no back pain. I took another step, no knee pain. And after my second step, I went into my Good Feet dance.
Today, he's grateful to be back in the great outdoors.
I feel like a new person, thanks to the Good Feet store.
See for yourself how arch supports can help you. Stop by for your free fitting or schedule one at goodfeet.com.
Airway Boulevard at I-10.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. Shopping for new blinds? At Blindster, we offer over 50 different blinds, shades, and shutters at low prices, custom made for your windows, and shipping is free. Shop at home and order 10 free samples of any product before you buy. Blindster.com.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk, including of those, again, dropping those likes and reacts like Stephen Christopher, Monica Cervantes, Amber Banda, Bernadette Bandico, Louis Zimmerman, Galvin Williams, Robbie Flores, Flaco Jimenez, Ida Beza Gardner, and James Holmes. So, a lot of conversations going on there, but just as a reminder, during the week, Monday through Thursday anyway, we got a lot of local stuff, including, I don't know, that interview we were just talking about. So if you're giving me guff about saying, oh, well, you didn't delve into that one, like, Friday is always coming. That's our pressure relief valve for the week, but local radio show. I don't know how to make it any clearer. Anyway, get back to those phone lines now. Again, that number to call line is available now there as well, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Marco over in Central on the line with us here right now. Marco, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew, how's it going?
Doing right there. What's on your mind?
Man, I'm going to make a real general observation.
Okay.
What is up with Raul, Eric, just this general mindset of agree with me or you're the bad person? Like the way Raul ended his conversation with you was like, you saw the video of Trump, right? As if you say no, then all of a sudden you're just some hideous, awful person. And so I don't understand how these people on the left, like, a prime example, Eric, do you want to agree that I want people to be healthy? And he literally shaved looks at you and is like, no, you want people to have AIDS. And it's like, what the hell is the matter with you? I'm agreeing with you. You just have this hatred towards people that disagree with you. And so, like yesterday, oh my God, yesterday, I couldn't believe it that Raul called you and was like literally trying to justify the word Uncle Tom as we explained to him that the use of Uncle Tom is such a bad thing.
Yeah, that one was an interesting road to try to hoe with that one here. But I will say that, I mean, reasonable people can disagree. And also, it irks me personally, but also it says more about the person who is opposed to this, saying that people can agree on idea being important, but also think that there are different ways to get there. I think there's too many people out there saying, oh, you agree with me that this is a good thing, therefore you have to agree with everything else that goes along with my interpretation of it. And the simple answer to that is no. Not how that works. Yeah. And whenever you come down, I mean, it's no secret on his position about anyone who disagrees or holds different political labels to themselves on this thing has no justification in his mind. And I'm sure it doesn't in his mind, without trying to put words in his mouth. But the lack of understanding that comes with that is also just incredibly telling. I'll just say that.
Well, the thing about Raul is, like, I swear to God, Raul was in his house literally thinking of, I gotta find a way to justify the use of the word Uncle Tom, as he's like seriously cosplaying as like a grand wizard, pretending to be Joe Biden at Robert Byrd KKK's eulogy. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And he's like, no, you gotta understand, the history of the word is us telling you that you're an Uncle Tom. And I was like, bro, do you like using the ER or the long A version of the N-word? Because it sure doesn't sound like you're a nice person over there, Raul.
Like I said, it's not the hill I'd be willing to die on. Let's just put it that way.
Well, I just found it hilarious. Like, there's so many good issues to talk about. And like Eric, man, like I just heard him just berating you. And I'm like, bro, you gotta, it's fine if you want to have those kinds of conversations.
Sure.
And like, even with Raul, but you got to make it you got to have a place where people can agree with you. If it's just flat out, bro, I agree, people shouldn't be dying because, every person deserves to live. I mean, he's a Democrat. Why the hell is he concerned? Like, in one breath, he'll tell you, oh, you don't like people to live. And in the next sentence, he'll be like, we got to support abortion till the 9th month. And it's like, you're stupid. I don't even want to talk to somebody like you, Eric. That's why it's a brick wall that leads to nowhere.
I'm not disagreeing with you particularly on this, but I think that the major issue, just to do this a little bit of navel gazing a little bit longer, is that we have some fundamental disagreements, the caller you're referring to there, on how to go about discussions. He seems to be effectuated of the idea that if you got to browbeat someone to submission, otherwise there's nothing can be done, which, again, I have put the question to him that he's never actually answered of, has that ever worked for him personally? But the way I go about this and the way that informs everything on the show, including other questions that have been brought up by other callers of why do we even take these calls, is because I'm willing to try to find maybe the middle ground. I'm not here to enforce consensus or even really to try to build it. This is not a you have to agree with me to end up on this program. But if you're not even going to be reasonable in the way that you talk about things or the way that you find points with other people, if you're only interested in capitulation from those that you perceive your political enemies, in this case, there's not much place for you in public life. I got to say that you may have a wonderful career in the party of your choosing. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, he definitely has Ukraine, pride flags, and all sorts of. I'm a good liberal. Look at me, and it's like, bro, we've talked to each other long enough, and we kind of know. I'm not gonna say we know each other, but I definitely know that you're not a conservative. Okay, I'm not gonna say that you're a liberal, but maybe more like a classical liberal. Man, you take a good perspective of everything that you. I'm where common sense comes into play. I don't want to play to the extreme roles. And there's places for those people. I go to the extremes because I'm only disgusted at the level that modern liberalism is at. I mean, I don't remember Dennis Kucinich ever talking like that. And he's a hardcore Democrat. I love that guy. He's the reason I was a Blue Dog Democrat for years. And so I don't, it's not that, I left the party to become a conservative. No, it's that you guys just became Marxists and like really like radical progressives pushing these eugenics ideas. And I just don't want to be a part of that. Like, it's just not my flavor of tea.
And the right of everyone to make their own decisions on what they think is the right way to go about it, and then see that come to fruition through either voting or their own actions running for office is one of the cornerstones of this country. The point is that I don't expect anyone to agree with everything I say here. I don't put out like, all right, here's my platform of ideas, take it or leave it, or take a height, Jack, or anything like that. But if we're not actually going to like discuss it and try to do it rationally, but if anyone's trying to enforce a particular kind of dogma on this or in any other aspect of life here, say there's something I'm not going to be involved in, but of the one we are, which is this program here, you're not going to have a great time. I'll just put it that way.
Amen to that, brother. And I'll leave everybody with this. We don't all have to agree. I had a beautiful discussion with a friend who's a very left person today. And, I discovered that he's not this left that we, as a conservative myself, we build this caricature of people, and he's not that. He's like every other person. He's reasonable. He loves the fact that he works. He works hard. He doesn't want his money abused. And I think there's this just weird place that we're at where we're willing to compromise the things that we know are wrong just for the sake of being part of something that we think we're part of. And Raul, Eric, I promise you this: you're not part of that team. They don't even look at you. They look at you and they mock you because you're one of those pawns. They don't care if you go out there and look like a jackass. All the power to you. They don't look like that. You look like that. And with that, I'll leave you with that.
No, fair enough.
Thanks a lot, Andrew.
Again, I say the phrase a lot. Reasonable people can disagree, but also another part of that but can also come to a consensus and general common action. And if you're missing that last part of it, again, it ends up being very, very navel gazing in its own right. So do appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
You too, Andrew. Take care, brother.
And I think we have time to squeeze in one more quick one before we end up having to take that last break and get to the end of the hour here. We do have on the line with us Jerry in Northwest on the line. Jerry, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Andrew, for taking my call. Mine is more of a station issue.
Oh, okay.
You guys are having this $1,000 giveaway.
Oh,
and then at 5 o'clock, it says it runs from 9 a.m. to 5 a.m. 5 p.m., correction.
Right.
And at 5 o'clock, by the time they give out that word, they close the window for you to insert the word on the website.
Okay.
So either they should give it out before 5 p.m. and allow people, a minute or two to get their stuff together to go. Because sometimes I can't drop everything and come inside to put my information in my computer.
Sure.
Right when I'm elbows deep inside of an engine. Okay? Sometimes it takes me 30 minutes to get things done before I can come in and enter that. So, just to make it fair, right? People
Certainly.
in the East Coast get to put in 2 more entries, basically, or 1 more entry than we do here in the mountains section of the time frame. So maybe you need to bring that up with the people that run the station, or the people that control who does the free money thing.
I understand
Thank
that.
you.
No, sure thing. Okay, well, appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Thanks, sir. Bye.
I will say this: I haven't been as involved with the administration of this particular contest, the one he's talking about, the $1,000 giveaway. But what I will say is that, it's supposed to, when it says like 9 to 5, it's supposed to be then the 5 o'clock hour is unavailable because it's supposed to have the whole hour to be able to give in that. But what I will say is that these actually are the same time frames, where then time shifted a couple hours. So it would be going to like 7 o'clock on the East Coast, the way that part ends up working. So I don't believe anyone's getting a more bite at the apple than not, is the way that ends up working. But I'll take a further look into that, see what we can come up with on the whole 5 o'clock issue you bring up there. So do appreciate the note on that. Always looking to make things better as much as possible, or at least deal with issues. So and I definitely don't enter the contest myself. That is strictly verboten. So knowing that perspective, again, it's helpful and I do appreciate it. With that, let's go ahead and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, tell you what we're working on for you. We got coming up for you on the program. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
10-minute delays on the I-10 eastbound from Trans Mountain through downtown over to the 54 Patriot. An accident reported Alameda at North Carolina. Police responding to an injury accident, Donovan Drive at Thorne, and heavy traffic Montana eastbound McRae out to Zaragoza with 7-minute delays. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. Want to save big on custom faux wood blinds, shutters, cellular shades, and more? Shop Blindster today and save up to 50% over comparable blinds from brick and mortar stores. Get custom blinds at low prices and free shipping at Blindster.com.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-989-8906 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-989-8906. That's 800-989-8906. What do you have to lose? Call 800-989-8906. Again, 800-989-8906.
My mom and dad are the best. Ever since they called the early childhood program, I'm doing so much better, and mom and dad don't worry or stress as much as they used to. They seem a bazillion times happier, and all services are free.
Parenting isn't easy, so we signed up for the free early childhood program at the El Paso Center for Children. They taught us how to deal with COVID-19 stress and be better parents. Lots of other free services are available. Call 915-500-4105. That's 500-4105.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., and let's talk El Paso.
Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message data rates may apply. Reply stop, opt out.
My drinking had become a problem. Too many nights waking up at 3 a.m., sweating, head pounding, self-loathing, and anxiety hitting me hard. Thinking, how did I do this again? What's wrong with me? Why can't I stop?
If you're finally ready to stop drinking completely or just want to drink less, naltrexone could help you. Naltrexone is an FDA-approved medication that reduces cravings and pleasure from drinking, making it easier to drink less or quit alcohol altogether. And you can see improvement almost immediately. Whether your challenges with alcohol are mild, moderate, or severe, or health makes it simple to get started with treatment, just text PROBLEM to 323232 to get a secure link to our private online assessment. One of our licensed medical professionals will evaluate your assessment, and if medication is right for you, prescribe it directly online. We'll deliver your prescription right to your front door. No doctor's office visits required. You really can stop drinking or just drink less. Text PROBLEM to 323232 to get started today. Text the word PROBLEM to 323232. Text PROBLEM to 323232.
It's the Marketer's Report. Today, Kate Cronin, Chief Brand Officer of Moderna, tells us about the advantages the speed of audio production affords their growing tech company.
At Moderna, we have a mindset saying that we pivot fearlessly. And I think with audio, you can pivot fearlessly. You can go where the news is and bringing in content that perhaps you didn't have a few weeks earlier. It's less 6 months in advance or 3 months in advance when you do a TVC. You're able to create really nimble content, which I think in this day and age, and particularly at Moderna, where we have new information coming out on a regular basis, being able to feed that information to the audio format makes being nimble and pivoting easy.
As the #1 audio company, iHeartMedia gives marketers access to all, every audience, live conversations, trusted influencers, and the insights and data you need to grow. Not just a media company. iHeartMedia is your access company. If you're a marketer, go to iHeartResults.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. Want to save big on custom faux wood blinds, shutters, cellular shades, and more? Shop Blindster today and save up to 50% over comparable blinds from brick and mortar stores. Get custom blinds at low prices and free shipping at Blindster.com.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Some of the stuff we're working on for you here is, still trying to chase down some of our state legislators as much as is possible, given the whole status and limbo that exists therein, but also some further conversations about like what's going on with some of those background systems and things then that you might not see as much. Particularly one interesting one that we didn't even get to here today, I'm realizing as part of this, is a very interesting investigation from El Paso Matters, actually going down to the Panama area and some of those like Darien Gap and areas like that. So very, very interesting stuff that is still very much affecting stuff we're seeing here in the borderland, or at least that nearby. So more conversation on that and a whole lot more. So hope you all have had an interesting show overall. I'll just say that, and I hope you all are going to be looking at having a good evening there as well. Bernadette Bandico looking forward to Taco Tuesday, but I'll have to leave it there for today because we are out of time. I want to thank everyone that did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. We'll do it again tomorrow, as we do every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. So until then, until next time, I want to thank you all for being here, and I remind you to stay safe out there, look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
10-minute delays on the I-10 eastbound from Trans Mountain through downtown over to the 54 Patriot. An accident reported Alameda at North Carolina. Police responding to an injury accident, Donovan Drive at Thorne, and heavy traffic Montana eastbound McRae out to Zaragoza with 7-minute delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Hi, I'm Burt Ward, Robin from TV's Batman, inviting you to feed your dog natural, non-GMO, Gentle Giants dog and puppy food. Dogs eating Gentle Giants and following our special feeding and care program are living as long as 27 healthy, active years with a wonderful quality of life. Holy wow, 27 years! Think of all the extra years you could enjoy with your dog at Target, H-E-B, and stores near you. Try Gentle Giants cat and kitten food too.
Wendy's is open until midnight or later, which means all your favorite menu items are up later too. The Baconator still tastes just as juicy and bacony at night. So listen to that craving and turn in for the night at a Wendy's drive-thru. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
With an open channel,
I guess just try to keep channels open.
We welcome open-minded individuals.
I try to keep an open mind to all issues.
With open arms.
I think we need to always have our eyes open.
For open conversation. And when you open the iHeartRadio app, you open a whole new world. Wherever you are.
What should America do about immigration crisis?
I guess open the borders, but at the same time, check everyone that's coming in.
Open the gates.
A free download in the App Store or at ktsmradio.com. News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day.
I don't watch television, so I get all my news from you.
News Radio 690 KTSM. There won't be much substance on your news feed until you add us. Just like us or click on the link at kcsmradio.com. News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso.